land a punch. It's going to be hard. It's going to be a hard
Who'd
game.
you guys play this weekend?
UVA.
And you won, right?
Oh yeah, we killed them. That's the rival. We're 13 in a row on those guys. So.
Oh, wow.
The goal, the alumni goal is to get to 18 so that the freshman recruit will say that in his lifetime they've never. So we love killing football.
Of course.
It was a good game. It was a great guy there. We have this tailback, halfback, fullback. I don't know. We play him all kinds of different positions. He's just a walk-on, just a hustling guy. Plays hard. He's from my home area, Richmond, Virginia, and they brought him out for his senior day. So they bring him out last. He's wearing Coach Frank Beamer, who is Hall of Fame. He's wearing his number. It's a thing they do. So he gets to wear his jersey.
Cool.
He comes running out and he starts crying. He hugs his mom, hugs the coach, starts crying.
Cool.
Gets the ball, tailback, runs for 105 yards, scores 2 touchdowns.
That's
That's
cockeyed.
awesome.
And
That seems like it's cockeyed or something.
and then proposes to his girlfriend in the north end zone.
Wow.
What a day!
Yeah.
What
And
a day.
and it was just one of those magic days for him. So
Where's the Clemson game?
it's going to be in Orlando, Florida,
Oh.
because of the.
It's gotta be a
They pulled it
neutral
out of
site.
Charlotte because
Yes.
of the bathroom deal in North Carolina.
Oh. Fascinating.
Yeah.
Well, we're pulling for Virginia Tech.
Well, thank you.
It's selfish, but because we're Penn State fans around here, so
Oh,
it helps us
well,
if
we're
Clemson
trying to
loses.
be, our goal is to be the Penn State of the South. And they're working their way up to 40,000 people, and
That'd be
expanding
pretty
the
tough.
campus, and it's buildings going up all over the place there.
That's
So.
great. That's right.
Blacksburg is very reminiscent of State College.
Hmm.
Yeah, when I first went to State College, I was there on business years and years ago, and I rode through the town and went, oh, okay, this looks real familiar.
Huh?
Yeah.
Like-
Only larger.
It's
larger.
like crazy.
Well,
The
the town
loyalty-
is the
the
school
loyalty
now.
up there.
At Penn State, oh yeah. it's
Everybody
huge.
bleeds blue. I mean, it's like
I can
biggest
believe it.
alumni. I think it's the biggest alumni association of
And
any in the world.
I think it's like, yeah, it's huge.
You know,
one-
it's
the
like-
largest in the world.
it's like crazy.
They love it.
Well, this is a simulation, so there is a bit of role playing. So our goal isn't to teach you or point out things here. That's what you'll do with the video, Carl. You'll do a critique. We'll do a critique of what you think you did really well, what you think you would improve on, and Matt and Jeff are senior leaders here with lots of experience and have hired a lot of people. Betsy does some of our interviewing, and so she is gaining great skills as well, and she's in a training process with us today. I'll be more of a facilitator, though I will ask questions. So we've set up the cameras. Betsy, do you want to look to see if I'm in the way on the small one?
Okay, that's on Carl.
Okay. I just want to make sure.
And I have a clear view of the side of your head, and then Carl's in the foreground. So.
Okay. Do you want to move that slightly that way?
Mhm.
Is that better?
Yeah, will you be leaning forward? Sit like
Usually,
you're gonna,
but-
sit like you're gonna sit for real.
Okay.
Okay, you're definitely in the way. You should probably leave.
Maybe, how about move the whole system
I mean,
over?
just even pivoting it a little bit is great.
Okay.
Carl's the only one that needs to be on the video.
Yes. Yep.
Okay. And then
So-
he's in. He's on. Are we recording at this time? Yes,
Yeah.
we are. Okay.
Yep. So they had an opportunity to see your video and your e-portfolio, those kind of things. So that's what most people are going to have when they come into a situation like this. Anybody have any questions before we kind of officially start? All right. Great.
How long do we want to go, Dave?
About 45 minutes
Okay.
would be what we think is a good number. Well, let me pray. Gracious God, I want to thank you that you never have to learn anything. In fact, you're the great teacher, the master of not only knowledge itself, but you know us. You know the hairs on our head, the thoughts of our mind, the words of our mouth. And so I just pray that you'd use this time as a good training opportunity for Carl, as he's one of your premium servants and looking for the next role that you would have for him. And we pray that we might help sharpen him today, and that there would be great value added to not only him and the ministries that he'll be serving, but to each of us too, as we reflect on your kindness to call us into your ministry and give us the opportunity to be in this room today performing this service for you. And we ask that you give Carl calmness, clarity, and good opportunities to show forth those kind of things that we'll be able to coach him with.
Arrived at 820
And-
Route 113.
And we'll thank you in Christ's name. Amen.
Amen.
Well, you
That
have
GPS is
arrived.
going off.
Alright.
I don't know why that's doing that. I just shut that thing off.
Well, you have arrived.
We never know why our
I thought
buddies
that
do what they
doesn't
do.
sound like I envisioned God, but you know, I read the check, so anything's possible, I guess. All right, well, Carl, welcome to First Church, and we're interested in talking to you and learning a little bit about you and your family and your ministry. Why don't you tell us just kind of briefly your background, your ministry experience?
Okay. I guess I've had 21 years ministry experience with Brandywine Valley Baptist Church as small group pastor, adult pastor. I developed 5 ministries while I was there, including the small group ministry that rose to about 80 groups, with 700 to 800 people involved. Brandywine as a church is a church of about 1,200 right now, but we were averaging about 700 to 800 in small groups. That's 1,200 is their total number of adults and children. They average about 700 in worship, and so I spent a lot of time there learning and growing. There's other Baptist churches I've worked with in Virginia, and one in Texas as well.
Before
where I just
Brandywine.
wanted- Before Brandywine.
So you were on staff there? Or?
I was on staff at a church called Grove Avenue Baptist Church. At one time was a major church in Richmond, Virginia. I was part-time singles pastor there. The other churches, I was a volunteer. I left that position. The pastor retired, and a new pastor came in, and he didn't make decisions. And my wife was pregnant with our second child, and I was working part-time there and full-time as an engineer, and said that's enough, and I resigned for the sake of my family and our second child on the way. And so I took a year off, worked in a church in the area, was a liaison with their small groups, and they were considering me as well for staff until they had a major breakup, and their pastor retired and left. At that time, I got in touch with Brandywine and so we began interviewing, and it came down between those two churches. I went to Brandywine, moved to Delaware.
That's great. So, you said you developed a number of different ministries. Talk a little bit about the small group ministry development. And was there a model that you kind of
Yes, there was.
of, or where'd you?
Oh, certainly. We operated off the Meta Church model by a man named Carl George, who also was the founding model for Willow Creek Community Church.
Mhm.
And in fact, I started there in '95. We had about 10 groups there. We brought in another number of groups with Promise Keepers that was very active at that time. In 1998, we brought Carl George in for our first conference we ever run. Gave him a call and said, "Please come," and he showed up. And we had, I guess about 20 churches show up for that, and our people as well. And at that time, I had about 100 people involved in getting involved in training. And we went on and just began to build those groups from that point, and with the Meta Church model in mind.
So was that the primary spiritual formation discipleship model of the church? Did they have other other formation kind of ministries?
Brandywine was a traditional church with a Sunday school. There was some real concern that I would end that when I came in, but of course I didn't. In fact, I introduced more teachers. I used the singles ministry at that time. I was also building that ministry. I melded it to the small group ministry and made it the example. We had 3 classes running, but we also had 12 small groups and 120 people involved in those. So what we did was we set that as an example, and then looked at the church and said, "Here's where we're going, and will you trust us on this?" So it was a very careful aspect of teaching plus caring in the groups. And so the groups, by 2003, the board came to the conclusion that said, okay, Carl has the core of the church, and we will make this center, small groups will be the centerpiece of our spiritual formation. But that took 8 years.
Yeah.
And
So the senior leadership embraced that philosophy, and how did they do that, and how did they support you?
the senior leadership embraced that philosophy because I discovered Willow Creek small group conferences in 2001. Went with I had an assistant at that time. We had about 35, 40 groups, and we went to Willow Creek, loved it, came back, took 7 people the next year, and in 2002 we took 15, and including half our board. And we spent time with a guy named Russ Robinson, who was the director of ministries there. We spent an hour with him after one of the meeting days, and our board got all their questions out, and we talked about what is a church of groups versus a church with groups. Our board didn't like either one of those. I kind of felt that they were right about that, but they also said this is absolutely paramount, and they came back. We came back in 2000. By January of 2003, we were having that discussion.
So what happened? So does the church have small groups, or is it the church?
Church has small groups.
So
Oh, yeah.
how does that work for you personally in terms of that have small groups, or it is small groups? It is,
Do I agree with that statement?
yeah.
I would probably lean very heavily to the church of groups, but you have to understand how that works now, and it's changed. Willow Creek changed their ways. Other churches have changed their ways. What they've discovered is that, yeah, small groups are fantastic, and personally, I believe you got to have them. I could give you a theological defense of that, but that would take more than 45 minutes. Which is another reason I believe small group pastors need to be theologically trained. You need to be able to defend what you're talking about very well. But I lean more toward the church of groups. But on the other hand, I realize that while groups are fantastic places to care and to learn together, at the same time there needs to be some teaching that needs to be done for people in discipleship, where you can take on issues. What I was doing at the end of it, at my time at Brandywine, was I was overseeing the adult CE ministry as well. I was rebuilding that with some very large, what the meta-church model would refer to as a mezzanine. The global meta-church model, where you have large groupings of people that funnel into groups. For instance, I had taken one class, it was in a small room, had 40 people, they were growing well. I said, okay, I'm going to put you in this large hall. You're going to be 100 people within a year and a half. They hit 95 early this year. And then I said, okay, now put you in circular tables, and the teacher looked at me like, are you crazy? Yeah, we're going to put you in circle tables. And so he did that, and I said, I let that go for about a month, and then I brought him into my office, and I said, so everybody's going to the same table, right? Yeah, they are. I said, okay, now I want table leaders. So we'll introduce small groups, and we'll have them, and then see if we can spin them off into the homes with small groups. Our electives we were running in CE were all small group based. So we had five or six major classes that we were looking for 25 to 150 people, where we taught, okay? And some of those classes, okay, were in depth. Some of them were more for growing Christians, some of them were for seekers. And then what we were doing was running electives on issues like parenting skills, money, things like that. We were running other issues in a small group setting. We were running Financial Peace University for a small group. The guy was running it on Monday nights for 50-some people, but then he was running it on Sunday mornings with 8. you know, and that was just I'll work with you.